One of my last jobs, I got a CDL Class A driver's license, and I was driving 18-wheelers across the country. And that worked out all right until a year later when I had a drug deal in 40 states. And I never understood why. And then one day it hit me. The reasons that I found myself having problems everywhere I went is because I was carrying the problem with me. That I was the problem. And I had never realized that. I came back to this city after losing the truck driving job, and I found myself with no place to go. I got on the bus, and I rode the bus until I got tired of riding, and I got off on 12th and Pennsylvania Avenue, around Pennsylvania Avenue, somewhere around the FBI building. And I got out that night with everything I owned, the 2 bags, and I started walking up and down the street. As I walked up and down the street, I noticed something very peculiar to me. I noticed that every bench was occupied with a person. There was somebody standing on each of those benches, and under the benches were suitcases or something. And I didn't understand. But as I walked up and down the street, I noticed that these people was homeless. That's why they're down there. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was homeless too. And I said, wow. Boy, did that hurt. And I walked up and down the street until I saw an empty bench. That empty bench was in front of the post office at 12th and Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's where I lived for over a year on that bench. That wasn't too long ago, but I have a lot of health issues that result from me being out there in the elements and being homeless. And one is arthritis in like 6 inches of my body. And I didn't understand why arthritis was only bothering me at 6 inches of my body until one day I decided to go downtown and just to measure that bench that I lived on for a year. And when I measured that bench, it was a real coincidence that that bench was 18 inches wide. That bench is 18 inches wide, and I got 24 inches of butt. So it was 6 inches that was always hanging off that bench. And it bothers me to this day. I learned when I was out there that people can be very cruel. I was out there one night, it got a little cold. I had to go to a shelter. Going to a shelter. When I went in that shelter, I had to use the bathroom. When I went to use the... Where's my prop?
Don't have it, I know.
When I went to use the bathroom, there was no toilet tissue. And I asked the guy, what's the toilet tissue? And the guy handed me the toilet tissue and wrapped it around my hand 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And told me that was it. I looked at that little bit of toilet paper. I looked back here. Looked at it, looked up here. It just didn't seem like it was going to be enough. And I said, I need more toilet paper. And the guy said, that's all you get. There were people in the shelter doing drugs. There were people in the shelter fighting. The showers weren't working. The toilets weren't working. I made up my mind that night that I'd down the street before I'd ever go into another shelter. So that left me out in the street. I had gotten a job at a restaurant downtown D.C. I was making $12 an hour. I went on a doctor's appointment one night, and the doctor took some tests and everything and gave me a list of things that I had to get done to improve my health. But when I got back to work, my supervisor told me, he said, Steve, you're doing an excellent job. He said, but while you were gone, 2 Mexicans came in, and they'll work for me for $6 an hour a piece. So I can get 2 for the price of 1, so I'm going to let you go. So now I'm homeless and I'm unemployed. So now I have to do something that I swore I'd never do. I was going to have to beg people for money. I have to ask somebody for some money. And I shook a cup. The day that I shook that cup, the first person that came up to me while I was shaking that cup, I said, can you help the homeless? He looked me right in the face and told me to get a job. I been working all my life. And he had the nerve to tell me to do a job. That really hurt me. Because you remember in the beginning I told you I had these toilet paper fields. And people don't seem to care when you're out there in the street. So I implore you, I don't care what your social situation is, or whatever you all may grow up to be, I just ask you, don't ever be so cruel or so about yourself that you have the audacity to look down at another individual. You see, because we're all God's children. And one day that just could be you out there. Because the difference between being homeless and not being homeless is just a bad decision away. It don't take but a bad decision. And we're only human, and we're going to make some bad decisions. I got hungry one day, and I had to go to what they call a feeding. You know, that's an ironic word to use when you're trying to give somebody something to eat, a feeding. You know, it sounded more like you were feeding child. But then that's what they act like, you know, because the streets can break you. That's why you see so many people walking around talking to themselves. Because if you stay out there long enough, the streets will break you. People are cruel, and they'll break you. Then when I got to the point of being broke, when I laid on my grave that night, I had been digging a hole for myself all my life. And that night, as I laid on that grave, I asked God to take my life because I couldn't take it anymore. The degradation, the humiliation, I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I asked God to take my life, and I told him, I said, I've done that hole all my life. I'm going to lay in this hole tonight and just burn me. Well, the Lord decided not to burn me. He decided to plant me. And that night, it was like the heavens opened up and a series of angels just came to my rescue. First, there was a doctor who came from the Unity Healthcare clinics, and he asked me if I was all right. And I told him that no, I wasn't. And for some reason, I felt my gratitude to him that night. And he set me up into a recovery network, which I took. I went to a 28-day intensive recovery for drug and alcohol abuse. When I completed that, I went to a transition home in a program that helped me to rebuild my life. Well, to me, it wasn't rebuilding my life, it was building my life because I never had no structure in my life. And through that program, in the next couple of weeks, they'll offer me an apartment. And I will officially come off the road of being homeless.